Today, I'm going to unbox Lanzerath Ridge, Battle of the Bulge. This is a new game from DVG Games, or Dan Verssen Games, and it's just being released into the United States. As I said, DVG, or Dan Verssen Games, publishes this game, and they were kind enough to send me a copy, so I want to thank them right out of the box, so to speak. This game is created by David Thompson and Nils Johansson. You might recall David Thompson from many of his titles. He's very prolific these days, but he is the creator of the Valiant Defense series, and we actually have it on the box right there. And that Valiant Defense series started with Pavlov's House, and then was followed up by Castle Litter, and then Soldiers in Postmen's Uniform. Now, each of these games and the Valiant Defense, not only do they share a name or a series name, but they have similar concepts. They're solitaire. They have, you're moving individual units or have individuals involved. In Pavlov's House, there's actually 3 different boards that have like an operational side, and then a more, and then they kind of go down to a more tactical side where you have the individuals. But in Lanzerath Ridge, you're mainly playing the role of the individual defenders that fought at Lanzerath Ridge, which was one of the first engagements of the Battle of the Bulge. In fact, this was very far east in the Battle of the Bulge and was not expected to be an engagement. There was some intelligence officers or communication platoon out there and was not expecting to get into combat, but they did, and they performed amazingly well, holding off a much superior German force for more than a day. And so that's what this game is about. And that's something that is common about all the Valiant Defense. They tell very engaging and interesting stories. The Soldiers in Postmen's Uniform is the defense of a post office in Poland at the very start of World War II. Castle Litter is towards the very end of World War II, and is actually a story of the Allied and the Axis forces working together against the SS at a Castle Litter, which was a prison for high-profile political prisoners that the Germans held during World War II. And then Pavlov's House was a Valiant Defense, hence the name, during the Battle of Stalingrad, where the Russian force held out in this force for many days, again completely surrounded and fighting against all odds against German forces. So each of these solitaire games are kind of narrative-driven solitaire games. They tell a story, and they allow you to relive that story and try to play it out in a different fashion each time. So looking at the back of the box here, hold at all cost. You see some example of some of the counters in here. These are the individuals, the actual individuals from history, and again, this is kind of card-based or card-driven. It's going to determine actions and how the different Germans are going to be attacking you. They kind of serve as the AI, or the artificial intelligence, in that regard. It says right here, the Battle of Lanzerath Ridge was fought on December 16th, 1944, the first day of the Battle of the Bulge, near the village of Lanzerath, Belgium, along a key route for German advance. The American defenders consisted of 18 men from the 394th Infantry Regiment's Intelligence and Reconnaissance Platoon and 4 forward artillery observers. They fought against a German battalion of about 500 paratroopers and another 50 German soldiers from a Fusilier regiment. During the day-long confrontation, the American inflicted dozens of casualties on the Germans and delayed the advance of the entire 1st SS Panzer Division, the spearhead of the German 6th Panzer Army. Game components: 155 cards, 3 sheets of counters, 12 dice, 4 reference sheets, a 33 by 17 inch mounted board, and a rule book. So let's get into this. I've done a previously did a coffee with Kilroy that talks about a companion book that you can get for this. It doesn't come along with this, but I highly recommend checking that out. I'll put it in my description down below, but it's also I recommend getting that if you're going to get this game, because it has a lot of history in it and provides a lot of context to the game. This is the box here. This feels like it's smaller than the other boxes. I guess it's the same size there. DVG box there. Then you get the rule book and sources used. So it's a little bit of a bibliography here. And Lanzerath Ridge and other games. This is interesting. ASL, Combat Commander Battle Pack 1, Combat Commander Battle Pack 1, and Memoir 44. Very interesting there. In the rule book, you're going to have, this is typical DVG layout. It's going to be color. It's written in paragraph form, not necessarily in, chapter or sectional type form. So you got your introduction. They talk about a companion book. I've talked about that as well. Here's your counters and weapon counter and attack counter, and then the cards, and then this tells you how to do your setup. These games are typically not super complex to set up, but you have to kind of follow a procedure because they are solitaire, and so the procedure or the sequence of play are going to be very key in playing this game, because it dictates what you do and then what the AI or what your opponent does. So there's an example of the counters there. We have the name, attribute, action designators, combat value, and valor rating. And these action designators, sometimes different defenders or different units or different people can do different things. They might have some special abilities that they can go to different zones or use different weapons or have command and activate or rally other troops. Here's your setup of components, and here is continuing on with the setup, and shows you where it goes on the map board. And then you have playing the game. Here's the game overview. Here's your morale, which is going to be key to this game. You're talking about the defenders and them holding up out against 500 or more German soldiers that are attacking them, and they need to hold out for the whole day. So this is basically a game of holding on for dear life and trying to get to the end. What happened in real life in this game is they lost, one of the defenders was killed, and then the rest of them were captured either on the day of the battle or leaving or trying to escape after the battle or after the day was over. So your job is to try to, hold out for as long as they did, and that will measure that versus history. So the game board, he talks a little bit about line of sight, and the line of sight is built into the game board. So if you're in a certain section, then like this color is going to see everything in this color. If you're in this area, this color will see everything in this color. So line of sight is built into the game board. That's consistent with the other games in the Valiant Defense. I really like that aspect of the game. It kind of plays a little bit off the States of Siege of how different tracks were coming in, but it also plays off some other games, some almost miniature-based games from the Euro or Hobby World back in the day that had that built in, had the line of sight built into the game board itself. Here's your attack periods, the attacker phase. So this is, the Germans attacking you. You're holding out. You're the defenders in this scenario. And the cards are going to dictate how they're doing their attack or where they're going to be doing their attack and how they're reinforcing their units up these lines. Again, kind of a States of Siege type effect there. Then you have, this is all about the attack phase and assault, talking about some of the different cards or different attacks, like the MG42 and how that plays out, how that counter works. Mortar. Then you have the defense phase. This is your chance to, move around, move ammo, move commanders, try to get machine guns to different locations, but this is your defense along that ridge. As you see here, and there's several things that explain your actions that you can have, minor action, major actions, radio artillery. There's all kinds of different things you can do as the defender. Then you get into some of the attributes of the defender, and they're noted out there. And there's some game examples in the blue shaded, and then there are some notes, key parts about the rules. That's in like this pink shaded area as well throughout the rules. This is glossy and it's full color, as you can see. Here's your objectives, and then ending the game. And then you're going to match your score based on, what was history, and you can get some awards. There was a lot of honors that came for those defenders after the war. Here's some variants, so you can vary the play, maybe make it a little bit harder, make it a little bit easier maybe. There's these tactic cards you can add in. That's another way to add to the difficulty. And add a little bit more variety to the game. And then you can have competitive play here. And then you have the designer notes from David Thompson. And then this talks about the battleground, and this talks about the defenders. And quite a bit in here, but if you were to pick up the companion book, there's even more inside the companion book. So that's the rules. They look relatively similar to the others in the Valiant Defense series. So you get the board here, which is a mounted board. We'll pull that out in a second here. You're going to get these player aids, which one-sided, because they'll leave these on the board. They're decent stock, but this tells you about the defense phase and major actions. Defense phase, minor actions. So major actions will exhaust the defender, so they can't do anything more until they get unexhausted or rallied. I can't remember what the term is in this game, but some commanders can make them unexhausted sometimes. And then you have minor actions that do not exhaust. Then you get the attacker phase. So this is basically what the different attacks will be doing from the Germans. Then you have some attributes and rules to remember. So some key things to remember as you're playing the game. So you get 4 of those. You get your counter sheets. There's 3 here, and these are very thick. As you can see, they're very thick counters. So you get each of the individual defenders, and these are the German units that will be advancing on the track there. Then you have some counters for ammo. These are really small and punch out. Then you have artillery, more of the attackers and more of the defenders, and then the defenders have some individual equipment there. And again, even some more here. And then, of course, these are for the attackers or the Germans. And then some special counters up here. And these are dual-sided here. As you can see on the back, you have exhausted, which means they can't do more that turn. Bunch of dice. You have some of a 12-sided, 10-sided, 8-sided, 6-sided. Looks like we're playing D&D here. You get some cubes that will be helping you mark stuff on the board, and then you're going to have the cards. So let's get into these cards here and see what we have. Oh, I think there's a line on the side. I could probably pick these out easier if they're, maybe not. Looks like there's a little strip up there. So these are the attackers, and there's going to be different waves, it looks like. These are attackers 3, attackers 2. Sometimes there's usually different waves or how you set up the decks. I'll have to read more into that. And then attackers 1 in there. So these are the cards that will basically are the AI. This is what's going to move the attackers onto the board or move them up a track or have them do combat. So you have assaults and MG42s. That can't be good. And then it tells about roll in place, and then tells the unit, place or activate. So there's these will command the action for the attackers. There's some mortar there as well. Let's get into these cards here. There'll be more for the attackers here. And you'll probably get into the tactics cards. Over there's the tactics ones, which are kind of an advanced rule or optional rule or a variant, whatever you want to call it there. Let's finish up with the attackers there. This looks like there's some objectives there as well. Let's put those off to the side. So these are the attackers. 4. So it looks like there's 4 phases maybe. So there's different ways to... So put those go there. And that's probably how you sort them out for play. But, you know, nice cards. The art is very nice there. I like the graphic design. And the backs all look good. But I do like the art on that. You know, it's not, you know, just captured imagery. It's not cartoonish. It's full on, you know, art like that. So that is 4. Then you have some objectives here. So 0 victory point, 2 victory point, 3 victory point. That's interesting. So, and then we have some tactic cards here. And these are tactics 1 through 4 on the little number there. And so this is, again, one of the variants. So I'm not sure how this plays in, but we'll have to read up on that rule. So you get some cards in here, you get tactics, but the heart of the game are these attacker cards. This is what's going to drive the AI for the Germans. Let's move this over to the side here and give us some room for the board itself. See what we have here. Some mounted board. Folds out like this leg. So this is going to be too long for the camera. Unless I pull out a little bit here. Might have to pull out or pull up here. See if we can pull up a little bit and get a little bit better view of this whole board here. Pooching a little bit there, but that will eventually set down here. But I like the art here. I mean, you've got, you know, Belgium in winter. So you've got a view of the trees and the foliage. You have some open areas here. The defenders really set up along this ridge here. And so that kind of masked their numbers. There was only 20 or so of them, if that. And then there was over 500 or so of the Germans attacking this direction. And so this ridge line and with its cover of trees kind of masked that and allowed them to, you know, move around along this ridge and keep the defense up. And so that's what you're doing. This is, you know, the initial stages of the Battle of the Bulge, and it's many versus few, and see how long you can hold out. You have a morale and an intelligence here. I think that there's the ability for, I think there was an artillery observers here, so I think they might be able to call in some artillery to help out at some point. But really, it's just a limited number of defenders trying to, and they're not really combat troops. They were intelligence and artillery observers. They weren't full-on combat troops or combat-ready platoon. They were very specialized, but yet they were in the thick of combat on December 16th, 1944. So that's your map. I like it. I like the look of it. Let's try to get a little bit closer. Let's move this down and get a real close look at the map so you can see what it looks like there. And I like it. I like the trees and everything. And so the attackers are going to move along these circle paths, and the defenders will be in these squares, I imagine. And then, based on the color, tells you who can fire to who, or what's the line of sight you can see there. Anyway, so that is what you get in a box of Lanzerath Ridge. Again, I want to thank DVG and Dennis for sending me this this game. Also want to thank, do a call out to all the fine people at DVG for sending me this. I really do appreciate this, and I like this series. I want to thank David Thompson for designing this series. This is a great series and something that I really enjoy over time. You get quite a bit of good stuff in this box. The counters are thick. The cards are nice. They're not super thick, but they're very playable. I mean, I guess if you wanted to sleeve those, you probably could. If you wanted to, you get some cubes in there as well. And you get a whole bag of dice. So that is what you get in a box of Lanzerath Ridge, Battle of the Bulge. Again, I wanted to thank Dennis from DVG, who I've been communicating with. I want to do a shout out to Colin and Blake, his kids, who maybe they watch my videos, maybe they don't, but if they're watching today, then hey, Colin and Blake, thank you so much, and thank your dad. Anyway, that's what I have for today. What do you guys think of this? How does this look to you? Each one in this series is different. They tell a different story, and they tell the story in a different way. However, they all use similar mechanics and similar components over time. So I find that very interesting. And I like that. I like how this series is developing. And now they've all been dealing with World War II. I think that's a sweet spot for David Thompson. But this series, I think, can easily be translated to other engagements. Maybe the Alamo or something like that. Rourke's Drift. I think this series could easily be translated to some other engagements outside of World War II. But for now, it's in World War II, and I'm liking it. And I hope you guys are interested in this as well. I'd love to see your comments on this. Is this something that you want to see, you want to play, you want to see more of? What do you think? Love to see a dialogue started. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Thanks to everybody for stopping by. I know your time is precious, and you can do a lot of stuff with your free time and with a lot of different YouTube channels. So thanks for stopping by and watching a little bit of mine. As I said, I know your time is precious, so I do greatly appreciate that. Thank you all, and thanks again to DVG. I can't wait to get this to the table. Thanks for watching.